Hello everyone and welcome to the XCam update 1.2. If you have already installed XCam, then it's easy. Simply replace the old XCam PBO with the new one. So that's all. But if you are new to XCam or you want to refresh your installation, then the zip file contains all the data you need. In this case, watch the tutorial videos, especially the XCam installation video. You can find the respective link to all the tutorial videos in the description down below. If you start the new version for the very first time, then you will notice a small hint in the lower left corner, as you can see here. And that means some of the additional windows has been reset and we have to find a new position for them. So that's the favorite window, the system window and the search window. Okay, after that action, simply press and hold down the left shift key and press the pause key to save all the new window positions. Okay, now we start with the first new functions, and the first function is a kind of a switch, and now you are able to switch between different daytimes. And I mean, this function now works also within a multiplayer session. So I have to check it out again, but I mean, yes, it's working. To use this new function, simply open this menu here down below and select the daytime option. And then, as you can see, there are 4 new buttons available. So hit the button, for example, to switch to morning, midday, evening, and of course midnight, to check all your lamps, for example. So that's very easy now. The next new and very interesting function is the turbo mode. And that means as soon as this little dialog here is visible, you will find this turbo button here in the upper right corner of the dialog. And if you hit the button, then the turbo mode is active, and if you hit the button again, the turbo mode is deactivated again. And turbo mode means all the armor settings like view distance, shadow distance, terrain grid and so on are reduced to a minimum value. And that means all the procedures and all the functions works a bit faster during the turbo mode. Okay, I will show you some examples. If you load a project, press the turbo button in order to speed up this process. If you save a project, press the turbo button in order to speed up this process. If you insert a large prefab, press the turbo button to speed up this process. Or if you copy a large object selection, press the turbo button. As you can see, there are many different situations where you can use the turbo mode. And please note, the turbo mode is automatically deactivated as soon as the respective process is completed. There is one situation where the turbo mode is automatically activated, and that's the start and refresh process. So, for example, if you want to walk around a little bit, then you have to press the escape key to exit XCam. And then, if you want to go back into XCam, normally you have to wait many seconds until you can go on with your work, because the whole data must be refreshed within XCAM. And now, with the use of the turbo mode, it goes much faster. So now round about 5,000 objects refreshed in only a few seconds. If you now export your project, so for example as a terrain builder file, then you don't have to change this text anymore at this point here. Simply use the option buttons in order to set the respective option. And then hit OK and you are ready. And the same is true for mission and for script export. But as you can see, there is an additional option available, a low damage. And now, it's easy to switch between the options and hit OK. So that's much easier now. I have reworked the object detection method because, the old method was a bit tricky, especially if you want to detect very small or very large objects. The new detection method is now based on the new ARMA 3 functions, and that means as soon as the cursor detects any geometry, the respective object is selectable. And that's also working with very small objects, as you can see here. So that's now much easier. But there is one restriction, because the new ARMA 3 functions are not working with every object type. So that means, for example, objects like roads or some of the sidewalk objects are not working correctly. But in this situation, for example, you will not realize that there is a problem, because I'm able to detect every object here, as you can see. And that's because XCAM is using the old method automatically, as long as the new method doesn't detect any geometry. If you have a closer look at the mouse cursor, then you will see what I mean. So for example, if the cursor hits the geometry here, then the object is selectable. But this method is not working with the sidewalk object, for example. So the cursor hits the geometry, but the object is not selectable. But as soon as I reach the center of the object, then it works, because now the old method is working. That's also true for all the road objects. But there's one situation where the automatic is not working anymore. So, for example, if I move this sidewalk object above these objects here, then I'm not able to detect the sidewalk object, because in this situation the new method is working. But you have always the possibility or the option to work with the old detection method simply by press and hold down the left shift key. And that means as long as this key is pressed, the old method is working. And then you are able to detect this object here, the sidewalk object. And as soon as you release the shift key, then the new method is working, and also the automatic is working. And you can see the difference, because as soon as a cursor detects any geometry, you will see a small pointer at this position. And that's not working with the sidewalk object, for example, because now the old method is working. Now the new method. I have also expanded the brush tools and created a new brush tool. So the select brush and the delete brush have now some new options. And you already know the problem with these brushes. So for example, if I start the delete brush, the brush behaves like a sphere. as you can see here. And then it's very difficult to detect, select or delete the correct objects. But with the new options, it's now much easier, I think. So let's start the delete brush again. And now press and hold down the left Windows key to see the available options. And the first one is the default one and means the brush behaves as before. And with the other options you can detect the objects only above or only below the brush height. Or if you want, you can detect the objects within a user-defined range. And then it's very easy. For example, if I select the second option here, then the brush detects the objects only above the brush height. And then it's very easy, for example, to delete only the upper object row. So that's very easy. So, and if you want to use the last option, then you are able to set the range by using the mouse wheel. Increase or decrease the range. And then it's easy to find the setting in order to delete, for example, only one object row. And with the select brush you have all these options also available, of course. So for example, if you want to detect the objects only above the brush height, then simply press and hold down the left Windows key, select the second option, and then it works. The SingleBrush gets also some new options. The first new option is to get the orientation of any other object during the brush is active. So I will give you a small example to show you the new possibility. So first we have to start the SingleBrush, press B, and at this point I think it's a good idea to disable the randomize orientation. Press Windows key, move mouse wheel one step forward to disable this option here. And now you already know the problem. If you want to set the orientation of the current brush object to the orientation of any other object, then it's not possible in this situation. But now it is. So simply press and hold down the left Alt key in order to freeze the current brush object. As you can see, if you move the mouse, the brush object is not moving anymore. And now you can set the focus to any other object. And in this situation, press the left mouse button. As you can see, now you have the right orientation, and every time you press the left mouse button, the brush object, change the orientation 90 degrees wise. Press left Alt key, set the focus, press left mouse button. So it's easy, as you can see. Another new function for the SingleBrush is a new delete function. So for example, if you start the SingleBrush, place some objects here, and then maybe you make a mistake, then in this situation normally you have to cancel the whole session by pressing spacebar, or you have to press the return key in order to save all the objects and then delete this misplaced object. But now you can press the delete key during the brush is active, and then XCAM will delete the last placed object. So you can press the delete key again and again until you reach the end of the brush objects, and then you can start again. So it's simple. Press delete key to delete the latest saved objects. Another new function for the SingleBrush is the restricted movement. And I think you already know this function, but now this function is also available for the SingleBrush. So start the SingleBrush with the object you want to use, maybe this one, press B, and I think I need the orientation of this building here. So press and hold down the left Alt key, left click the building until I get the correct orientation, then find the start position, maybe here, and now if you press, for example, the X key, then you can move the brush object only on this axis. And as soon as you release a key, you know you have free movement again. And if you press and hold down the Y key, you can move the object on this axis. So, but there's a small problem, because if you start to copy some objects here, then you will reach the edge of the screen. And then you can't go on because you can't see what's happening there. So in this situation you have to release the key, but then, you know, it's difficult to find the correct position to go on. Maybe this? No. But there's a small additional function available, and that's a kind of a snapping function. So you have to move the brush object near the last saved object. And if you press X in this situation, the brush object snaps to the last saved object. If you press X in this position, then the snapping function will not work, but in this situation it will work. And this snapping function works with the last saved object and with the first saved object. So you can copy the objects from here, simply move the brush object near the first saved object, press X, and you can go on with your work in this direction. So that's very cool, I think. And now some words about the restricted movement function, because many people have problems with this function. So basically, if you want to move the object on the X-axis, for example, press and hold down the X key and then move the mouse to the left and to the right. And no matter which camera perspective is in use, move the mouse only to the left and to the right, and don't try to move the mouse along the green lines. That will not work. Only if you move left and right. Left and right. And the same is true, of course, if you press the Y key. You can move the object only by moving the mouse up and down, and not by following the green lines. And sometimes it looks a bit strange if you move the mouse to the left and the object is moving to the right. So that looks a bit strange, but it has a simple reason, because the whole function is depending on the orientation of the object. So that works correctly, and as soon as I rotate the object by 180 degrees, it works exactly in the other way. So it feels and looks a bit strange, but that's normal. At this point, a small tip about the copy distance, because I guess many of you don't know the easiest way to copy an object with a user-defined distance. So basically, if you copy an object, the distance is based on the bounding box size. That means if you copy this one, the distance is very small. But for example, if you want to copy this object along the road here, with a distance of exactly 3 meters, then it's easy. Press and hold down the left Windows key and set 3 meters on the respective axis. In this case it's y-axis. So set to 3 meters and then start to copy the object. And as you can see, the distance is exactly 3 meters. So that's very easy. But don't forget to reset this setting again. Press and hold down Windows key and press the reset button. That's all. The last new function for the SingleBrush is called geometry detection, and this function is also based on the new ARMA 3 functions. And to activate this function, start the SingleBrush by pressing B and then press the key J, and the function is active. And as soon as you press J again, the function is deactivated again. But what exactly happens if you turn this function on? So we have a closer look now, and normally the brush object moves at the same height. But if you turn this function on by pressing J, the object now follows the geometry. So that means it's now very simple to place objects above other objects. Here another example. So press B and then press J. There is a similar function available if you have a single object selected. So for example, if I select this object and now I want to move this object on top of this object. And as you can see, as soon as a cursor detects any geometry, there is a small pointer. And the pointer shows you the position you can reach. And in this situation, simply press the J key to move the current selected object to this position. So that's very easy. And that's also working if you have an object selected with the alternate moving mode. So set the focus, press B, and now the alternate moving mode is active. And then it's simple. Set the pointer to any position you want to use and then press J. And then the object is moving to this position. In the same way it works with an object selection. So first select the objects you want to move. Then at this point it's important to have the right reference object selected, because this object is the reference for the right height. So I think it's a good idea to select this object here as the new reference object, and then simply move to the position you want to insert the object selection, maybe on top of this building here. Then have a closer look at the pointer, because that's the position where the reference object is placed. So, and then press the key J, and as you can see, exactly at the position of the pointer the reference object is placed. And now you can simply move the object selection and so on. And if you want to bring the whole selection back to the ground, then it's also simple. Move the mouse cursor, for example, at this position here on the ground, and then press J again. And as you can see, the whole selection is back at the ground.